My name is David Fluhr. I'm the supervising re-recording mixer at Disney Animation Studios. I have been mixing for about 46 years and coming up through television. My long-term goal was to get into movies. And I came to Disney in 2004 along my path and started in live action mixing, but then was asked to work on Chicken Little, which was Disney Animation's feature film that year. And I, of course, said, yes, absolutely, I'd love to. And ever since then, I've been mixing every Disney animated film, short and series since then. And I became full-time staff at Disney Animation in 2018 as the supervising re-recording mixer. So I've worked on everything from Chicken Little,
Run!
Tangled,
I can't believe I did this!
Wreck-It Ralph,
I don't want to be the bad guy anymore.
Frozen,
Hello.
Big Hero 6,
Microbots. Yeah, he was controlling them telepathically with a neurocranial transmitter.
Zootopia, Moana,
Is my canoe, and you will journey to different.
all the way through Zoomania 2.
Woo! Hops and Wiles. Dream Team.
Re-recording, it's kind of a funny word. It doesn't really flow off your tongue, you know. It's in post-production. We're in post-production, meaning after the movie has been pretty much made, we come into the picture in terms of our sound mixing. And we take elements that have been recorded already, such as dialogue, music, and sound effects, and we re-record them. We mix those together to create the final mix that people will hear and see in theaters or at home. And so we call it re-recording because it's differentiated from a production sound mixer who might be on a set with the boom mic and recording the production sound of a live action film. We're then, after all of that happens, and in animation, there's original dialogue mixers that are similar to what a live action production mixer does, recording all the dialogue for the films. And then we then take it and re-record it and make the final mix of the film. We should just be called final mixers, but I don't know. This re-recording is what came up years ago, so we stuck with it.
Hey, bub.
Hey, bub.
Hey, bub.
Hey, bub. Hey, bub, bub.
Hey, bub. Bubby, bub.
Hey, bub. Hey, bub. Hey, ho.
Hey, bub, bub. Seen a snake?
Nope.
The foundation of my job is the same. We're supporting the storytellers. We are creating soundscapes that help an audience focus on what to pay attention to in the story. Those parts of it have all stayed the same. The technology has improved tremendously, as it like exponentially over the last 15 years or so. It's really, really grown. I mean, when I started, we were analog with actual audio tape and splicing machines and, you know, very tactile, hands-on. And now we're totally, completely in the digital world. We have morphed into it over the last 15 years or so, where now it's 100% completely digital medium. And it allows us to be fast and accurate. That's the thing that's really improved over the years, I think, is being able to reproduce. So in other words, when we're mixing dialogue, music, and effects, I'll go through and I'll get dialogue squared away so that it's working the way I want to work it, and then it plays back the same every time. It's called automation. So when the automation is working, we can create dialogue, music, and effects soundscapes that will reproduce, and then we can go in and fine tune. So the ability of the last 10 years or so has really been the speed and accuracy of those tools, as well as the equipment that we use, which responds better, which gives us more tools at hand to be able to fine tune our work. I'm using that word too much.
Huh.
You know, we used to use outboard gear, what we would call outboard gear, you know, equalizers and filters and reverbs and special effects devices that would be boxes that we would plug into with cables. Now we use plugins. They're just software that we can route our audio through and manipulate and automate. And that has become significantly improved in terms of the quality control, the things that we can fix now that we couldn't fix before, in terms of repairing Just to give you an example, during the pandemic, we had a lot of work from home, and I was working from home, but so were the voice actors, and they might be working in their living room or their hallway, recording dialogue and sending it to us. And when you listen to it, it sounds like it's in a gymnasium or something. It's not what you want it to sound like because it's very reverberant. And so we have tools that really now help us to clean things up and make things more acceptable. That's improved. And also the cost of things, those things have come down. When I first started, it was $1 million for a mixing console, and now that's significantly less. So the technology has improved, and the cost of the technology, also the size of things. My laptop can hold a full Dolby Atmos huge session, and you can work off of it, whereas before we had these giant machines we had to work with. So it's very hard to keep up with, but at Disney there's a history of R&D, research and development, and innovation that's always attracted me, to allow people to invest their time in finding better workflows and things. So that's significantly improved too. It's a lot of things, but that's just a few. AI is obviously the buzzword now. Everybody's talking about it for picture and sound. It's not in my purview for the work that I do, because we're looking for tools that will help people create. And Disney really is very adamant about, it started as a person creating something and they really want it to stay that way. That's not saying we're not doing R&D. We might have tools in the future that will help us and maybe speed things up. But it's just not in my purview right now to be using AI generative tools. That's just not what we do, especially because I'm able to be in a project very early, from the inception of the project, when it's just storyboards and animation very early. I'm building the track from the very early stages, and it keeps modifying. And I would say if there's tools in the future that look interesting, that Disney will, they're always looking into things, and we'll see where it leads. I just mix everything in Atmos, even if we're not delivering Atmos. I have templates. We call them templates. They're designed to be our digital audio workstation called Pro Tools allows us to mix in various formats, even at the same time. So I can mix in Atmos even if I'm just delivering a stereo track in the end. But you never know if somebody's going to want the bigger version, and it's always easier to mix the bigger version and create the smaller version. So, but the delivery requirement is for Atmos. Theatrically, for sure, we mix in Dolby Atmos, and we make a 7.1 theatrical and a 5.1 theatrical, and then we even use the Atmos to make IMAX versions. For home, we start with home Atmos. So everything that I do for Disney Plus is home Atmos. And we also make 5.1 and stereo. I mean, more people might see the stereo than the others, but the home theater environment, that's something that's improved also in the last 10 years or so, is being able to acquire high quality sound and these immersive sound formats at home without having to spend a lot of money. And so it's definitely growing. But when we do mix in Atmos, we make sure that all the other versions and the ones that people are going to hear most, everything is listened to. Nothing's just, the other thing that I want to say about it is nothing's just automatically generated. We make custom mixes. So yes, you can make an Atmos mix that will, generate a stereo at the end, and the software will allow you to do that. But we go through and actually listen to the project in all the versions and make adjustments to make sure that things, what we call fold down from the largest to the smallest, are actually working properly. So essentially, when we're talking about making other versions from theatrical Atmos, like IMAX, there's a piece of software that used to be hardware. Again, that's improved in the last 10 years. The Dolby Atmos renderer, which allows you to work in Atmos with objects and regular tracks and what we call beds, but stems of dialogue, music, and effects, and make your Atmos mix. But then you can use that to create the IMAX versions that you need to make. And Dolby and IMAX have kind of gotten together and agreed to share some technology so that we can use the Dolby renderer, and it will provide an IMAX 12. You have to tune the room for IMAX. It's not the same room tuning, but you know, it's like tuning your orchestra to A440. You've got to make sure that you're setting to a standard and that your specs are all correct. But if you're listening in an IMAX room and you're using your Dolby Atmos mix, you can then listen in an IMAX environment and you make adjustments as you need to, because the idea would be to make sure that it's as close to the original mix as possible. We don't want our versions to sound completely different. So we're very careful about protecting the director's vision in the mix that they've heard in all of our versioning.
We are in a really big hurry.
I am on
It?
break.
So sound levels in theaters is definitely a hot topic, just like at home, because people are complaining they can't hear the dialogue. And I've been in movies where if people go, well, what'd he say or what'd she say? And as soon as that happens, they're out of the story. And a lot of what's happening, I believe, and there's efforts right now to help fix all this, but we'll see. It's not an easy task because movies have gotten louder and louder because they can, because the technology that's advanced over the last 10 years has allowed these higher volume levels. And creatively, though, it's very difficult to legislate an art form when a director prefers to, have a certain powerful moment. So there's the creative side that I'm not sure you can legislate, but on the other hand, you don't want to hurt people. And so what happens is the theaters end up turning down movies automatically, even though that's very frustrating for me. This is a hot topic because I can only speak for what we do, and I've been doing this now long enough to know we make our movies to play in a calibrated theater at a standard, which is there's like a detent on the volume knob, and it should be sitting on that so that it will reproduce properly. We're not making movies that are going to, pin people back in their seats in level and hurt people. We have an audience that is wide range. I mean, our movies are aged up now, more so, in that, it's slightly older audiences, but they're for all ages, and so you have to be very mindful of that when we mix. The frustrating part for me is that when certain other commercials or things that are playing in the theaters are so breathtakingly, it's like the old FM radio, when everybody wanted to be the loudest on the air so that when you were spinning around the dial, the loudest thing would pop on and you'd stick with it. Everybody was trying to be as loud as possible, and some of those things have caused a little bit of concern with being too loud, and then they turn it down and then the movie plays low. That happened to me on Moana when I took 15 people to see Moana at a Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos theater, got the primo seats. I was very excited to hear it in a giant theater, and the trailers came on, and it was actually okay at first. And then some commercial came on with a Coca-Cola thing spinning around the room that was so hurtful and so bright and so ouch. People got up and ran to the manager, who I had just talked to, by the way, and said, please play it at the level. And they turned the movie down. So volume levels are definitely a problem. And what's also happening is because the theaters are turning them down, directors and mixers are well, they're going to turn it down, so we're going to mix it louder so that it'll play correctly when it's turned down. And it's like this never-ending battle of, just raising things. The problem with that is when the movie does play in a properly calibrated room, it's ear-splittingly loud. So we just try to stick to mix it in a calibrated room, mix it to a standard, be powerful as you need to be, give it dynamics. Not everything has to play super loud all the time, and that's all we can do. You can't second guess that the Regal down the street's going to play it the same as the AMC or the Gloria or the whatever. That you can't second guess, if that's a phrase that makes sense. You have to go with the standard and fight the good fight to try to communicate about. I don't know where it's going to land with. If my feeling is if they're going to have a maximum level, you should have a minimum level and just keep that volume knob locked and use that instead of this variable of people turning it up and down. So it's a bit of the Wild West, as we say.
What's that noise?
Sorry. Nervous here.
I remember going to see the Hunger Games, and I brought my son, his friend, and the kid's mom, and we were sitting there watching Hunger Games, the first one, right? And it was at the high-end movie theater in LA. And the trailers come on, and the center speaker sounds like, everything else sounds okay. And so I thought, oh, that's a weird trailer, right? And then the second one, and I'm like, oh no, it's just futzed, right? And squeezed, and nobody's reacting. So I'm the guy who always gets up. I go, same thing, talk to the manager, and they say, I said either the speaker's blown or amps are off or something. But, here we are. And I go back in, and nobody's reacting to anything. They just thought it was all normal. And all of a sudden you hear a big pop. Turn the amplifiers on for the rest of the array, and it sounded fine. The movie was great. And I just said, did you notice that? They said, oh, no, it's what? So that's also a problem. My most rewarding project is a difficult question because it's like picking your favorite child, which I don't know anybody. I have one son, so that's easy. But there was a few milestones along the way, and honestly, for me, Tangled was one of them because the studio had been kind of rising on this creative arc, and getting back to the Disney sound that kind of made them famous and that storytelling. And when it came to Tangled, and I got to work with Alan Menken, who was a Disney legend composer, and just the whole music department and the sound teams that created the world of Tangled. And some of the songs just stuck with me, and I got to mix those songs. That's when I really felt like everything was coming together for me creatively. I'd been leading up to that point, and then here we are making this giant musical, and it was heartfelt, and it was very satisfying. And so that was a milestone. Of course, then Frozen came after that, and that was the movie that just really launched everything. The first Academy Award for Disney animation for a movie, and then we had 3 in a row with Big Hero 6 and Zootopia, and we did Moana the same year as Zootopia, and that was a tough one. Moana absolutely goes up there with Tangled with me, just because of the story. Plus, we did a Tahitian language version of the film, which Disney didn't really make a big deal about, but was a big deal to the people of Tahiti. And I just saw this kind of cultural acknowledgement, and really just in all the films, very true to trying to be as true to the cultures as possible and still make the stories relatable. So that period was very special for me, and it's just continued on.